the great job Hugh has done as compere tonight. It's always a difficult role, and it's even more difficult when you don't have a lot of talent. But Hugh is a very, very close personal friend, not mine, thank Christ. Hugh's one of those people that if you lent him 50 quid and didn't see him for 6 months, you would think it was money well spent. Nights like tonight afford me the opportunity to meet up with old friends again and hopefully form some new alliances. Tonight has been no different. I met Gordon Raffin earlier on. Gordon and I hadn't seen him for years. The first time I met him was in Dunadry Hotel many years ago. We come out of a function at 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get the car started. It was pouring rain, and the one person who afforded me assistance was Gordon, and for that I was eternally grateful. Gordon come over and says, "Have you a problem?" I says, "I can't get the car started. Have you any jump leads?" And Gordon gave me 2 addresses in I want to personally thank Graham Kerr for affording me the opportunity to be with you tonight. Graham is one of life's gentlemen, has been very successful, always willing to share his good fortune with those not as well off as himself. Lives in a beautiful area. He has the big issue delivered. And when he rings the police, they ask him who recommended us. He was invited in tandem with his good lady to the Waterfront Theatre in Belfast recently for the premiere of the new Andrew Lloyd Webber musical based loosely on the life of Irish singing sensation Daniel O'Donnell. It's called Superstar, Jesus Christ. As they left the waterfront, Graham was accosted by a rather dishevelled young man who approached him and says, "Excuse me, could you give us a couple of pound? I haven't eaten for 3 days." Graham says, "Force yourself." I see a very good friend with us tonight, a man I haven't seen for too long. A man who's been very good to me in the past. Jeff Goldsborough, everybody knows Jeff. Last Tuesday, Jeff finished 4th in a George Clooney lookalike competition that was won by Ray Hempy. I just want to go off at a tangent here, and I'm speaking mainly to the men in the audience. Just a word of advice for those of you who have considered or will consider at some stage in the future using a sex chat line. Please be careful, I'm speaking from experience. I was in rehab a couple of years ago after an illness, and purely out of curiosity, I rang up one of these chat lines. It was only for a fortnight, and in 2 weeks I ran up a telephone bill of £280. If you're going to do it, my word of advice to you is, under no circumstances ring stuttering sluts. After dinner or public speaking, is a very difficult discipline. And speaking as someone who has done it numerous times, it presents a new set of challenges. Every night you do it. Different audience, different makeup of the audience. And just because we have done it many times doesn't ease the difficulty. People generally tremble if somebody hands them a microphone. Even people of the highest profile. I want you to cast your mind back. Can you remember a boxer called Frank Bruno? Frank Bruno was a former world heavyweight boxing champion who had one thing in common with Michael Jackson. They both wore gloves for no obvious reason. He was being interviewed in advance of his second world title fight with Mike Tyson by Jim Rosenthal, and Jim Rosenthal said to him, "Frank, do you think Tyson's invincible?" And Frank says, "I hope not, because if I can't see him..." I can't have him. In his day, George Bush was the most powerful man in the world. Hard to believe. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, he addressed the American nation. And he said, "My fellow Americans, our country will rise from the ashes like a pheasant." His Secretary of Defence, Dick Cheney, was sitting in close proximity and says, "Mr. President, I think it's a phoenix." He says, "I knew it began with an F." Do you ever notice if you get lost and you're looking for directions, as often as not you stop and ask a complete muppet? I was going through Cookstown one day and I stopped outside a bookie shop. These two guys were out having a smoke, and I said, "Excuse me." Well, I says, "Is there a B&Q in Cookstown?" He says, "No, but there's 4 N's in Dungannon." How does that work? When it's your birthday nowadays, at 1 minute past midnight, the world is made aware of that on Facebook. Even if you're not on Facebook, for some reason, they can get your birthday on it. Before that, the world was informed of your birthday on a white sheet hanging across the motorway, strung between 2 houses, on a tree at the bottom of your lane. I was going through Toome Bridge one day, and I was going past Tria Gardens, which is the oldest surviving estate in the village, and strung between 2 houses was a beautiful snow white sheet, and emblazoned on it in massive letters was the message, "Happy 30th birthday, Granny." How does that work? Somebody said or suggested that there's a fine line between honesty and stupidity. If you find a wallet with £500 in it and you give it to the police, that's honest. If you give them the £500 as well, that's stupid. If you tell your wife you have been unfaithful, that's honest. If she happens to be waking at the time, that's stupid. If you get stopped by the police and you admit to having taken drink, that's honest. If you offer them some, that's stupid. As we move inexorably towards the end of 2017, I look back on last year with many deep personal regrets. In January last year, I lost my father, the man who more than any had helped factor the direction my life would take at all times up until his passing. An amazing man, my dad. I never remember him working. Gave the best years of his life to the social security system. He was a man of very few words. I remember he said to me one day, "Son, that was it." I never forgot that word.